Okay, good afternoon. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. I'm Billy Horn, the vice chair of the committee. David Knight is the chairman, and he's asked me to go ahead and get the meeting started, but he can't be here. He's got a bill to present in Ways and Means, which is the committee that sets the tax policy for the whole state, so I don't know what's going on with that. I mean, I guess he needs to get his priorities straight, but anyway, but I am going to go ahead and call this meeting to order, and the members will come in and, as time goes by, as a lot of them are tied up in other committees and so on and so forth. As a matter of fact, I'm going to step out here in a little while because I've got to go to another committee meeting, and I'll turn it over to Representative Harden when I do that. But I do want to go ahead and get started, and I just want to assure everybody who's here to speak today that your comments are being entered into the record. So don't be discouraged that there's only a few of us here. There'll be more coming in, but your comments are going into the record, and we will certainly make sure that they make it into our report at the end of the year. What we're going to do today, I think we have 6 speakers scheduled for today, and the one that's first on and there's a sign-up sheet too. I don't know where it is right now. Okay, we got a sign-up sheet, so if anybody wishes to speak today who wants to address the committee about any regulatory issues that you're experiencing with your business, please put your name on that sheet, and we'll try to get you heard today. But I do have a list of 6 people who have already signed up to speak today, and we're going to go ahead and move straight to them. Ms. Bragg is not here, is that correct? She's not here yet? Okay. They're first. The first people that I want to give the floor to are the Stalvies. They own a restaurant in Covington, and they have a very interesting story because I met Mr. Stalvey at the Metro Chamber last week. But before they get started, their representative, Representative Doug Holt, is here, and I want to turn it over to him for just a few minutes before I let Mr. Stalvey tell us his story. So, Representative Holt, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to recognize some wonderful folks from home. Jim and Sharon Stalvey are highly esteemed citizens of Newton County. They operate multiple original local restaurants, several of which have been going strong for literally decades. They have an absolute gift for consistently delivering an excellent meal at a terrific value, and I think they are just the exact folks this committee needs to hear from. So I highly recommend everything they want to pass on to you. There have been some issues I've worked with them on in past years, and they will bring those to light as well. There's some great opportunities here. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Holt. Okay, with that, Mr. and Ms. Stalvey, would you step up to the mic, please, and introduce yourselves and tell us what your issue is, please.
Don't know where I can live up to that wonderful, nice words by Representative Holt tonight, but we'll try. My name is Jim Stalvey. This is my wife, Sharon. We're from Covington, Georgia. I've been in the restaurant business for 58 years. 40 of those years has been in Covington, Georgia. I've owned numerous restaurants in Covington and other towns. I have 3 in Covington now and 1 in Monroe. That's 2 separate counties, Walton and Newton County. But the restaurant business is under assault. I don't know where y'all have any constituents in Walton and Newton County, but it also extends into Gwinnett County because it's what I call the Gwinnett experience, where they started this new way of inspecting restaurants, and it came out of Gwinnett County, and they took over Newton County's inspections and then Walton County's inspection. But it was so poorly done, and without any regard for the restaurants, how they operated or anything. I mean, they just come in like the Gestapo in the middle of lunch. It doesn't matter if you got people lined out the door. They totally disrupt your whole organization. I brought some examples of what they did to me. I have a whole stack of, if anybody would like to see them. These are inspection reports that they do on you every month, or every 6 months, basically. And these things are 93, 92, 94, all the way up to 100. And then you see one that says 31. And that's undesirable. That's when you're forced to close and correct the problems, which I did voluntarily. They didn't have to close me. I said, I'm closing the restaurant right now, and I'll take care of this situation, and I'd like you back in here tomorrow to inspect me. Well, it'd be impossible for you to take care of this in one night. But I put 14 people in the building, installed several hand sinks. I've got a small kitchen. I'm the only restaurant in that part of the country that's got 5 hand sinks in it. But I installed 3 that night, plus corrected all the other problems, and you can see there are numerous. Mainly just structural, because it is an old building. They said that they would be back and follow up and check us out on the 31st of December, which would have made us lose the whole Christmas season and deprive my employees of making the money that they would to take care of their families over Christmas. But I called the next morning at 10 o'clock and told him I was ready to go. And he advised me not to waste his time. And there's no way I could have got that done overnight. And I said, well, I've been in the restaurant business 58 years. If I tell you it's done, it's done. So you can come and check it and do whatever you have to do if I haven't done it. So he came, and we reopened with a 98 the next day. So it couldn't have been all that bad if I corrected his problems in less than 18 hours. So that's how they started. That's how we first were introduced to their new system. And after we got to checking into it some, we found that we had a health inspector who had worked for our district down in Covington, Georgia, who they had laid off, and she brought us a little information that was enlightening, that in some of the meetings there that they had been told not to give Mr. Stalvey a good score because they didn't like Mr. Stalvey. And not only did that extend to me, but it extended to my son, who was opening another restaurant in Porterdale. And mainly it had to do with him, had to do with floors. And they let the restaurant across the street have a vinyl tile floor, and my son had put in one thinking it would be legal. They made him tear it out and install a quarry tile floor. And I explained to my son and explained to them that this is excuse me, the rule book for the state of Georgia. Now, the only way you can get this is download it. They don't sell it. They don't give it to you or anything. You got to download it, which we did. Took several hours to do. But here is what it says about floors. Materials for indoor floor, wall, and ceiling surfaces under conditions of normal use shall be smooth, durable, and easily cleanable for areas where food service establishment operations are conducted. Don't say nothing about anything with what it has to be. It can be vinyl, it can be sheet vinyl, it can be painted floor according to the law. But they'll come in and tell you, no, you got to have a quarry tile floor, and that's my rule. And until you install it, you're not going to get your opening report. So there's those kind of things where they're allowed to make up rules as they go along. That's wrong as far as I'm concerned. We all should be following the same rule book. We all should be on the same page. And be specific about what the laws are. Here's what else the little lady had to say. She went to the first, with this Mr. Reagan, she went to the first inspection to a place called Gigi's Pizza. And apparently she did something there that her boss didn't like, so she got a reprimand for it. Later on, they laid her off, and it said the reason they laid her off was because she had been reprimanded, laid off due to the economy being slow, and because I received a written reprimand on December the 4th, 2008 regarding my advising Mr. Reagan in the past to allow Gigi's Restaurant to not receive a failing score and thus to allow Gigi's to remain open and not to be shut down during the implementation period. Now see, this goes back, there was an implementation period that was supposed to have been for about 2 years, was it not, honey? Where you were going to have meetings, they was going to do mock inspections and give you copies of those, what you'd know what to expect. The state requested at the end of the 9-month training period for the inspectors that all inspectors should give restaurants 2 years for the implementation of the new food code and fully enforce starting on December the 1st, 2007, and to be fully enforced starting on December and ending on December the 1st, 2009. That was the implementation period, 2 years. And it says later on in here that it was transferred out to Gwinnett County, and under their jurisdiction, and there was no implementation period. And we were supposed to have all these meetings and so forth to train us, and you know, we're not stupid people. We can learn how to do all this, but when you don't know anything about it, the first we heard of it, they walked in the front door of our restaurant at 12:15 and said, "Is the manager here?" And my assistant manager, one of my assistant managers, told her, "No, Mr. Stalvy's in Monroe. His wife has gone to take her mother for chemotherapy." And he said, "Well, we'll appoint a manager. We're going to inspect." And that's the way it got started. That's how we found out about it. And of course, they came with one thing in mind and one thing only. If you go into the restaurants under the new code, I don't care where they are, who they are, how well trained they are, how many years they've been in business, they can find enough points off to close you that day. I mean, there's things in there that you can't make up. They're ridiculous, like washing your hands. You know, I was in Crawford Long not too long ago with open heart surgery, and everybody came in there, went over to a thing on the wall and hit it, put the sanitizer on their hand and wiped it off, put the gloves on. We'll close you down the restaurant for that, but they can work on your heart in the hospital without any problem. But the way to wash your hands in a restaurant is you go over, you turn the water on, you get the soap on your hand, you wash your hands, and you sing "Happy Birthday to Me." Happy birthday to me till you get through. And then the natural reaction for everybody here and myself is to turn the water off. That's 9 points. If you touch the handle with your hand before you got the glove on, it's 9 points. What you have to do is reach up and get the paper towel, turn the water off, dry your hands, then you turn the water off and put your gloves on. If you miss any one of those steps, it's 9 points. And when you're in the middle of lunch and people's running every which way, I can assure you they can catch everybody in there doing that. It's just, you know, and like I've told the health inspector, you will never be able to enforce this. There's no way. You just can't do it. The biggest problem you got is they know what time you go home every day. 4:30, you gone. So here was the first thing we ever got. Getting started to train us about what we were supposed to do. They gave me that 31 score on December the 16th. Right. On March the 4th, I received this after Mr. Holt got involved. We received this, and we got a letter from the Newton County Board of Commissioners that I was invited to a meeting. Well, I'll show you the letter. It doesn't say anything about a time. So we called the health department and asked them, what time is this thing going to be? We'd like to come to the meeting. We want to sign up and come. How did you get that letter? Well, the county sent it to me. But evidently I wasn't even supposed to get the letter. But after Mr. Holt got involved and I got the county involved, then things began to happen. And this young lady, Miss Carrie Wright, she got some early retirement. which is, I think, was too light on her personally. But at any rate, the way they're doing things is totally backwards. I mean, I've been in the restaurant business, like I say, for 58 years. I've had some excellent experience. I go all the way back to Rich's downtown when it was the place to eat in Atlanta. I worked at the Magnolia Rooms. I was a supervisor for Rich's. I catered Mr. Rich's parties, his son's parties, Mr. Goldwasser's parties, Mr. Brocky's parties, all of them. But, you know, and then I've been in Covington, like I say, for 40 years, and I've had all kind of experience, but I've never experienced anything like this, of how they can come into your restaurant and totally disrupt it, or do like they did at the Blue Willow Inn several weeks ago, and they had a problem with that. And it seemed kind of ironic to me that the health department, 3 health inspectors, and TV5 News showed up at exactly 10:30. Isn't that a coincidence? At the same time they showed up and began to interview all the customers and everything else and put it on the news. And like I asked them, you know, how does she get her reputation back? They didn't even know what caused the problem. They had no kind of test run or anything else. It just it's ridiculous to run a railroad that way. But it's totally unfair. And I had a friend that lived around the corner from me recently. He was a good man, the best barbecue man to ever hit the state of Georgia, bar none. Wasn't too far from here, over by the prison. Y'all probably know who I'm talking about already. He was the best at it, and he had cancer. And y'all probably know the place I'm talking about, Harold's Barbecue. And his wife told me, she said, "Jim, cancer didn't kill my husband. The health department killed him." So those kind of things need to be stopped. There need to be some oversight of the health department, and people like us who've got their whole life invested and everything they've got invested in these places. You know, we don't need to have our name put on the front page of the paper. Even the editor of the newspaper told me there was something funny going on, because he asked me, he said, "Jim, can I come over and get an interview from you? We're going to run this tomorrow in the newspaper." And I said, "Well, you can have an interview if you'll be fair with me." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, health inspector sat right here in my restaurant and told me that I wasn't the only person that got a bad score that day, that Applebee's got a score just about as bad as I did." And I said, "I noticed it wasn't in the newspaper." And so he called me back about an hour. He said, "Jim," said, I called Applebee's and held, and I called back again, and then they hung up on me. So I called the health department and told them I'd like to have Applebee's score. "Well, you can't get that. You'll have to send us an application for it, and we'll send it to Gwinnett County, and they'll study it, and you'll probably hear from them in 2 or 3 weeks." He said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Y'all gave me 4 pages on Jim Stalvey not an hour ago, or yesterday." And he said, "An hour ago I tried to get Applebee's score. He told me they got a bad score." And he said, "I never asked for anything on Mr. Stalvey. You called and gave it to me." So that's the kind of stuff that needs to stop. It's just needs. We all need to have to play out the same rule book, and it needs to be the Georgia State Book of Rules and Regulations. And when they come in the door, they say, "Oh, you got your rule book?" "No, we didn't know there was one. Here it is. We're going to charge you off 9 points because you don't have it." So.
Thank you very much. Would you be willing to spend a few minutes taking some questions from a couple of our members, please?
Sure, absolutely.
This is.
Sorry I talked so long.
That's okay.
I used to be a preacher before I was a restaurant man.
I think this is actually the 3rd person that's come before our committee and had something to say about health departments, if I'm not mistaken. I think this is your 3rd. And we do appreciate you coming and sharing that with us. Chairman Knight has a question for you, please.
All right.
I apologize. I was late. I had a bill in another committee I had to get out and had a vote on. So I want to make sure I'm understanding, and I missed some of your conversation. You're telling me that you were not given a basically a playbook, a rules book, and
anything,
and then they docked you for not having one.
Well, they came in the door, wanted to know where the rule book was. We didn't have one. Not of the new rules and regulations. like they were going to do. We never had even had a meeting on it.
I mean, hey, was there no notification that there had been new rules and regs?
No, sir. No, sir. Where's the letter they said that they wrote to Mr. Hope? Here's after Mr. Hope got involved, Sandra Elizabeth Ford. Here's what it says. In preparation for the changes to the new food service code, the Newton County Health Department, at the request of the State Environmental Protection Program, conducted inspections utilizing both inspection forms, old and new code, as an educational tool for restaurant owners prior to implementation of the new food service code. These inspections were conducted in November 2007 for the establishment in question, which was me. That's a bald-faced lie. It didn't happen. Or any other restaurants that we ever heard of. Because, like I say, the first letter I ever got to even come to a meeting was sent to me, not by the health department, by the county. February.
And a follow-up to that, I'm also very discouraged. Why or under what authority do the health departments have to single out restaurants in scores or call up media outlets? And I understand, don't get me wrong, I think that the public needs to be informed of facts and scores across, so that there's a place people can go and look. That is very important. I think we all would agree with that.
I don't have a problem with that, as long as it's accurate.
But what I'm hearing is that the health department made a phone call or contacted the news media and singled your restaurant out.
I was the only one ever on the front page. There was a lot of restaurants that they gave poor scores to, but like I told him, I'm going to close voluntarily and I'm going to take care of this tonight because it'll be in the newspaper tomorrow. He said, no, sir, it won't be in the newspaper. You ain't got to worry about that. I said, let me tell you something. What happens to me in Newton County is news, and it'll be in the paper tomorrow or the next day. And it was.
We appreciate.
But Mr. Reagan, who was one of the inspectors, told me out of his own mouth that the way their system was set up, they could not have got the information, like they couldn't get it on Applebee's unless somebody there had given it to them. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Okay, Representative Hart.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Stalvey, and you can help me a little bit here. I'm not sure of the chain of command. You're operating under the state of Georgia health rules and regulations.
My understanding, I'm not real sure about that.
Now, it sounds to me like this is a county health department, and possibly the inspectors are simply county employees that are enforcing state of Georgia regulations. Is that the way you see it, or?
Well, the county says they don't work for them.
County says who?
County said that the health inspectors don't work for them. They work for the state.
They work for the state. Okay,
I went to the county. I got up out of my sick bed and went up the flights of stairs and went to the county and told them that when she told her health inspectors not to give me a good score or my son a good score, that she removed herself from that state umbrella that said she couldn't be sued. And I would sue her to the soles of her feet. And unfortunately, since she worked for Newton County, I would have to sue them too. I didn't want to, but I would probably have to. And they said, oh, she don't work for us, Jim. I said, well, if I was you, I'd get my name off of her truck, off of all of us' truck.
All right, and that's something,
Mr.
Chairman, I'm not sure how that chain of command is. I wonder if we've got anybody here that does know.
I've wondered that too. You mentioned the Blue Willow. We heard that story
Yes, sir.
a couple hearings ago, and I don't understand myself who constitutes health department.
And Mr. Stalvey,
Us or is it locals?
One thing I will commit to you to do is to find out who's enforcing these. Now, the rules and regulations book you say that you have, is it state of Georgia? Do you?
That's what it says.
And who basically, there should be somebody that puts that book out. Is the commission?
Little magic elf, sits on the desk and you call it up.
But I mean, as far as the person who is supposed to have put it out, is a commissioner of a health department, state of Georgia, or?
All we were given was a website to go to, and like I said.
What is the website? Do you have that?
The Department of Human Resources, Public Health,
All right.
website is http://Georgia.eh.us.
Is it DHR period? No, that,
No, it's EH.US. It's all underlined.
yeah, but that's it's US. That shouldn't be. It should be .ga. That's. Do you mind if I take a look
No,
at
sir.
that?
No, sir. We appreciate any clarification because we don't know who they work for.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Representative Braddock has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So thanks for coming. I'm hearing similar
My pleasure.
things in my community, so I do think this is not just a local issue.
May I interject something before you go any further right
Uh-huh.
there? It's unusual because most people are afraid to speak out.
Well, they'll tell me. They haven't come up
They're
here
afraid
yet,
of
but
retribution.
they told me.
They're afraid of retribution. I'm
Right.
70 years old, and I've been in the restaurant business long enough, so
Mhm.
I'm not afraid of any of that retribution.
Well, it's not just small businesses. I
Yeah.
heard of a situation at a Dunkin' Donuts, at a Firehouse Subs. You know, I mean, some of the, requirements are crazy. Like they're not allowed to pick up the papers that they use to handle the
It gets-
donuts,
it
and
gets
that's the whole
worse.
point of the papers is to
Yeah.
use them to handle the
Yeah.
donuts. So they're not allowed to touch them. Or they can't put the little containers that you put sauce in on the counter. They have to keep them behind the counter. You have to ask for them. It's a real pain. But anyway, so when you've been around for years, so just as a matter of perspective, when did you notice that this assault on the industry started, or what?
That day at 12:15.
No, what day? What year? What?
2007.
2007. Okay. And then you said that someone was let go.
2008.
2008.
December 2008.
That was a health inspector that had a conscience.
Okay. But you
He
didn't
thought it
notice
was
them
wrong.
being any harsher prior to that?
No.
Okay.
I'll show you all of our health reports.
Okay. And then you said a lady that got early retirement, but when she was
She was a manager.
okay, but when she
Director.
left, it
She
did
came
not
to
solve the
apologize to
problem.
us. Well, she came and apologized to us,
Okay.
but she would, of course, never do anything like that. But
But you're saying
we
there's
noticed
still
she said it
issues.
in a meeting that
stemming-
don't give Mr. Stalvey a good health report because we don't like Mr. Stalvey.
Okay. So you're still
We got what we deserved.
Yeah.
The inspector that came that December and did all this,
Mm-hmm.
when he went back, she said we had finally got what we deserved.
And so I devote, they was not a decent restaurant in Newton County when I went down there. And I spent 40 years of my life. At one time, I owned every sit-down restaurant in Newton, in Covington, Georgia.
So what I'm trying to find out though
No
is when
issue.
she left, it didn't solve the problem.
Well,
You're still having
it
issues.
Went on. It went on.
Okay.
It's getting better now, though, because
It is?
we're getting
Okay.
some people who are
Yeah.
righteous coming
Okay.
in, who are treating. But we still get somebody trying to make a name for themselves every once in a while. We can
Mm-hmm. Okay.
deal with that as long as they're fair with us. Well, if we got an issue, we want to know about it because the way I feel like everybody walks through the front door as a health inspector.
Yeah. Okay. So since you've been around, in the industry for a long time, have you noticed that the rule book is much bigger than it used to be? Is it about the same?
Yeah, it's all new. But anyway, they keep changing it.
Okay. So it is bigger or no? It is.
And I asked Mr. Yearlick, I talked to him for about an hour on the phone when this whole thing started, and I said, Mr. Yearlick, if these my rules that they come up with, if they're not in the rule book, are they enforceable? And he said, well, we give the inspectors some leeway, this, that. And I said, didn't ask you that. I asked you for a simple yes or no answer. If their rules that they come up with are not in the rule book, are they enforceable? He said, no, sir.
Okay.
So I tell them all, you show me in the book, I'll do it. If not, start writing your citation, and let's go down and see the judge, because that's what I'm going to do next time.
Okay.
Y'all hear that I've been put in the back of a marshal's car.
There are areas in there that are just not specific, like the flooring that he was reading to you. So therefore, that gives the inspector that comes out too much leeway to say, well, I don't want that. That's not what it means. If it's not what it says, then do they have the right to make that determination?
Right. Okay. They
Especially
should.
when they've done it across the
Okay.
street differently.
Yeah. Okay, and you made a comment about the media. I know in my community there is like a weekly email that's blasted out about the ratings, for restaurants.
I don't have any problem with that.
It's well, it's
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that.
because they have so many tiny little rules that are kind of crazy.
I tell you what, I do have an objection to, and I gave that objection to Walton County. They gave McDonald's a bad score. They didn't give me a bad score. So the man at McDonald's raised so much cane, they came running down the next day and gave me a bad score. So he wouldn't be so mad. So when the paper came out, his score, his previous score, was not on the wall. So they charged him off 2 points of the new one for not displaying his old health department score. Mine, I hung it up. I took full responsibility for it. I hung mine up on the wall and took the heat for it. But they came and put my previous score in the paper. So that's what I don't like. I think everybody ought to play on the same page. We all ought to be treated the same.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody had to tell him, well, just don't hang it up, and it's just a 2 points. So that's been changed. That's
Okay.
been changed. Now, I guess there's enough people like me that said, hey, this is not right, And when's the last time you heard about an Applebee's or a Longhorn or any big chain restaurant having these kind of problems that we're talking about? Now, you call anybody in Newton County. If you drive down the road, it looks like I'm doing just as much business as they are because my parking lot's full of cars. I've been there 40 years. I do a good business. We contribute about $1.8 million a year to that area in our restaurants. Besides the impact that it has on gas stations and everything else, because a lot of those people come from down at Madison and eat with us, or come from over in Henry County and so forth. So we bring a lot of business into the county.
Mm-hmm.
But you never hear about those people getting these kind of problems. It's just the independents.
Okay.
Right.
I'm hearing it from both, so.
Well, I'm sure they catching a little heat. They just don't get written up in the paper like I do.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Stabby, we're almost done with you. I promise.
all right.
I
Hey,
got
I-
Representative
I
Powell
got a
down
lot
here has a
more stuff I
question
didn't
for you.
bring
We,
with me.
we do need to move this along though, because we got 4 other people that want to speak, and we're gonna have to give up the room in about an hour. So, Representative Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Stabby, I appreciate hearing your comments. Now, about the only thing that you and I have in common is I never was a preacher, never claimed to be.
I wasn't either. I was just kidding with you.
But over a period of about 40 years, I've owned restaurants and barbecue restaurants and other type of restaurants in Northeast Georgia. And I guess the comments I want to make is to the committee.
Mm-hmm.
There's a history of those of us who have been in the food service business. Once upon a time, your counties were basically the inspectors, the county health departments. This was when your county commissioners had the authority. Then back about 10 or 12 years ago, there was started to be a move in this state by public health. And since there's a problem because it's a quasi-funded agency, your county puts up a certain amount of money and the state puts. So you can't tell anybody who in the world a health inspector works for. Do they work for the county or do they work for the state health, their agency? There has been a movement for several years now amongst the health districts around the state to push the button of a lot of the restaurants. And it's all got to do with money, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Once upon a time, you opened up a restaurant,
Exactly.
you'd perfected your skills, you knew the sanitary way of handling business in a restaurant.
Absolutely.
That was an old school charm of being in the restaurant business. And then all of a sudden, the health department folks came in with all these new gimmicks and rules and such as that. Then everybody had to go off and somebody had to be certified that they went to the school,
That's right.
the little classes that wasn't nothing but about money
That's all.
to pay for them to get to have somebody certified to be on staff. Then they started coming in, and then all of a sudden, I can't testify in your health district because I'm in one where we have the soup Nazis that run it up that way. But every district, public health district, does this different. However, how much latitude. But in answer to the question that I keep hearing you saying, yeah, there is a difference between the independent, the small business entrepreneur that runs a restaurant, and the chains. The chains, their operations are laid out. You know, they know they have to tell a cashier how to even make change. Nobody counts backwards anymore.
Right.
So they know what to do.
You got better lawyers too.
The independent restaurateur knows what's custom made to run their business. And that does not sit well with the bureaucrats that are writing the rules in the Department of Public Health, quite frankly. And there's nobody that you can go to. You can't go to your county commissioners, one, because they throw their hands up.
That's right.
But, you know, it's all about the money. They like it to be able to charge a restaurant $250 a year.
Well, they charged me $840.
For an inspection permit or whatever it is, but there's no uniformity across this state in the public health districts. And I thank you for coming up.
Well, I knew I liked you when I first saw you. I knew Summer you in the restaurant business.
Just down there. I hadn't seen her in so many years.
I've been knowing them 50 years. But let me tell you about barbecue, because you're a barbecue man. It's a barbecue restaurant in Monroe. My wife and I went to eat dinner not too long ago, and the man had his door open. He nice new barbecue machine in there with pretty stone-colored face around it. And I told him, I said, Mr. Robinson, I like the way you did your barbecue pit there. That looks real nice. He said, well, the health department told me I had to change it. I said, good gracious, it looks beautiful to me. What you got to change? He said, the stone's got to be white. So that's what we go through.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Y'all.
We got
Appreciate
we're going Representative Harden has one last comment for you, and then we're going to move on, and we very much appreciate both of you coming. This has been a great discussion. I appreciate it very much, Representative Harden.
All right, looking at this book, it appears that in some counties you may have the Department of Human Resources doing this, and in other counties the county may be doing it. This may be
The further you get from Gwinnett County, sir.
that this may be a county problem, or what we can do, though, I believe, is find out in your particular situation who is responsible, and then we can work from there. If it's the regulations, the state regulations that are a problem to the county people, then that's the way we need to follow it down. But I guarantee you I know what the chain is now, and we'll look into it.
Well, I think the problem is, excuse me for interrupting, because I know you're fixing to kick me out, and that's all right. But the problem is in Gwinnett County is a big county, got a lot of people working there, so they're farming it out. Newton County is farming out some of their things, inspections and that sort of thing to Gwinnett County. So is Walton County. So it looks to me like they're trying to form little hubs, districts where they do these for everybody. And it probably saves them some money. Yeah. Gwinnett County becomes the only county in the state to fully enforce the new food code with no implementation period. That means they didn't have no...
Good.
Didn't have anything.
Mr. Stalvey, thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
so
Appreciate
much.
it.
Good
And
to see
at
you
this
again,
point,
sir.
I'm going to turn it back over to Chairman Knight.
Thank you, Chairman Horn, for taking over. Next, I want to call Lynette Bragg. Lynette, I think you've come a long ways to see us. Thank you for doing that, and we won't hold your fellow that's sitting next to you. We won't hold it against you. No,
Don't hold my buddy against me, please.
No, he's my buddy too. A roommate. Well, thank you for coming, and please tell us a little about yourself and the issue that you've got a problem with.
Okay, well, first of all, I just want to thank you all for the work that you do on behalf of all the citizens of Georgia. And I really appreciate you taking the opportunity to listen to me on an issue that's very near and dear to my heart. And I am Lynette Bragg. I'm currently the president of the Georgia Association of Community Care Providers. We represent over 350 plus providers of home and community-based services in Georgia. So pretty well in every, not pretty well, but in every county of the great state of Georgia, we have providers who are working on behalf of citizens with developmental disabilities. I am not going to read you this big book. So thank you. Thank you, Buddy, Ryan. And then also I'm not going to read you all the information that I provided to you. That is more backup information just so that you can get just a tiny inkling of some of the regulations that providers do go through. And for the purpose of today, I'm going to speak mainly about residential providers. Those are your 4-bed personal care homes, or they're called community living arrangement homes. Currently, 49% of the people with developmental disabilities are served in these particular home environments. So for each of the different services that people get provided in the community through developmental disability waiver, like your Medicaid waiver programs, 49% of those do live in alternative living arrangement homes, similar to, or like what we're going to be talking about that's regulated today. All of the different services have their own set of complexities and their own set of regulations. So please don't think these are just the only regulations that we have to go with. And I thought it's hard to know. It's almost like Alice in Wonderland jumping down a rabbit hole trying to figure out what are some of these areas to just kind of skim over as we're looking at those, or we ask you to look at those. One of those is just becoming a provider in Georgia. If you said today, you know what, I want to open up a little personal care home in my area, community living arrangement home for folks with disabilities. That process, if you are in Georgia, is a minimum of 1 year to be able to do that. In here I have just included, you have to go through an application process with the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities, Department of Community Health through their Medicaid program, and also through their health care facilities regulation program. In here I've only included for you just a sampling of what it would be for the Department of Developmental Disabilities. But there are other sections that are also as thick to go through and meet those requirements. If you are out of state and you are a current provider of developmental disability services, then you are courted to come to Georgia. And you've got a 3 to 6 month process. So in-state, year plus, out-of-state, 3 to 6 months, and they help you with that. Again, you're having to work through several different agencies in order to do that. If you will look, and you don't have to go through, like I say, all of this right now, but I've also put in here a crosswalk that talks about the different regulations that you have to, or the different policies and procedures that you have to have in order to be a provider. So I included those different areas, regulatory bodies, in that particular crosswalk for you to look at. When we look at it, there are 17 different agencies that do oversight over your one little 4-bed group home. And I had 2 in Effingham County, which due to financial reasons, the cost of overhead far exceeded the cost for reimbursement. And after expending many dollars of personal funds and my dad's personal funds, we said, we just can't do this. Small business just cannot do this. So I've also included in here the different auditing and review bodies. There's 17 of those that we have to work through. With oversight agencies, I also included the different oversight agencies, and I think you may have heard from other individuals, Whitney Fuchs and some others, that have talked about the oversight. But I tried to put it down into a little visual format by saying these are some of the main people that come in and look at the personal care home, or I keep calling it that, but it's a community living arrangement home. With that, if there are no problems, you are looking at a minimum of over 200 visitors a year into that home to look at those 4 people. If for some reason you're providing supports to someone who needs a little bit of extra help, extra supports, exceptional rate, or if you, for some reason, your milk was out of date or something, you came up with an infraction on one of these many, many audits, then that would be up to almost a daily to a weekly minimum visits. So you're looking at 400 and plus visitors into that home every year. With that, you are required pretty much to have full-time professional staff to do absolutely nothing but manage the people that are coming into that facility. Mind you, again, this is a 4-bed home, supposed to be a home environment for people, but you've got 400 different people coming in on an annual basis with that, or 400 visitors coming in with that. So I've included just that as a snapshot for you with that. If you're a home health aide and you want to work, or direct support professional, and you want to work with people with disabilities, there is a mandatory 166 minimum hours of training every year. 166 hours. A neurosurgeon does not have to have 166 hours of education every year. A lot of it is redundant, the same. It could be streamlined, I do believe. But think about the cost to a very small business of having to have a professional person develop the criteria and the curriculum for 166 hours of training, and also having to have a professional to train the staff. And a lot of the training has to be done in small group settings because you cannot, or individually, because you cannot leave people alone. And oftentimes for small business, and especially in rural areas, the staffing is so limited that you're having to pay time and a half to these people also. So one agency, and this is a larger agency, said that their cost just for training was $210,000 a year. Okay, so again, this goes all the way from an agency that may have one 4-bed home. One of the other agencies that provides oversight is called support coordination. But 3 out of the 4 agencies in Georgia who provide support coordination are homegrown Georgia folk. They've been working with disabilities for many, many years. The increase in responsibility to them has just been, can I use the word humongous? It has been tremendous. It really, really has. So in here I've also included a snapshot for you from year 2003 when they were reimbursed $125 a month per individual, to year 2010 where they're at $149.88, so right at $150 a month, so an extra $25 a month in 7-year time. But I want you to see the additional responsibilities that they have. There is nothing that allows that particular group of folks to bill anything but a monthly rate. So if this individual is one of those that has to be seen daily or weekly versus once or twice a month, there's no increase in reimbursement for these particular folks. So I think that's an area where small business, especially these Georgia businesses that are small, are very much in jeopardy right now based upon their reimbursement and their responsibilities that they do. Another area that I just included a snapshot on that I would just like for you to look at with the cost of us doing business is the licensing fee comparison. And with that, you will see that large nursing homes pay an average of $3.75 per bed. But if you're looking at the personal care homes, which are community care, or the small personal care homes, or our community living arrangement, you're looking at, just for a license to do business, you're looking anywhere from $87.50 to $175 per bed. So there's a great disparity there. Also with that, the DCH manual does state that if you have national accreditation, you get a 25% discount. That is being applied to everyone but the personal care homes and the community living arrangement homes, even though it is in the manual. And we have had providers dispute this, but they have been told, no, you do have to pay the full amount. So just in looking at that. The other thing that I have put in here is just a schematic that shows a little bit of the oversight that I spoke to earlier with that. And just as one example, I have put in here one of the reviews with the citations that is used by Department of Community Health when they review an agency. Again, remember, every agency has its own set of reviews that they work with. Another area that is of grave concern to people who are living in these homes is that many of these folks have come out of institutions as part of the Department of Justice settlement, or prior to that as just part of their attrition, and they were fortunate enough to get to live in the community. And many people who are still living in the community do have extra support needs. People need a little extra support, not just oversight. And with that, there is an exceptional rate process that providers must go through. And initially, when someone's discharged from the hospital, like from Central State or Gracewood,